The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you in part by Mays Sandwich Shop, serving delicious hometown favorites to the West Lawn community since 1947. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, bringing you the latest news and commentary on baseball.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
College football.
The Big Ten championship lies on a measurement.
Did he get it? No! He didn't get it! Penn State holds!
They brought back the fun, they brought back the excitement, and now they've brought back a Big Ten championship. The Penn State Nittany Lions are Big Ten champions.
And the NFL.
He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth! What a comeback!
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 235th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Kind of crazy with the weather today that we're going to be talking stuff that I know technically doesn't start in the fall, but it sure seems that way. But it's that time of year.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because just this afternoon I was talking with my daughter Natalie, and she said something to the effect of, "It's not summer yet." I forget what I said, and she was like, "Daddy, it's not summer yet, it's spring." And I was like, "Okay, well, you're technically accurate because summer doesn't start till June 21st.
Yeah, right.
It's right around there." I said, in two ways you're wrong, because calendars can be perceived in multiple ways. One, summer starts generally when school is out. Like when school is out, it's summer. Two, meteorologically, June 1st is the start of summer. And that made me think, I was like, well, technically, like, summer doesn't end till the end of September 20th, 21st, 22nd, whatever it is. And by then, like, we were in full football. Like, September 1st is fall. Like, it could be 98 degrees, but when the calendar says September 1st, I'm like, it's fall.
Well, no, I feel the same way. You talked about summer starts when school ends. I feel like summer ends when school starts. Like that's...
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly.
For all intents and purposes, it is done. Like it's over. And that's fine, but, now it's summer.
Yeah, it's summer now.
And it feels like summer today.
And I was obviously not being a jerk or chiding my daughter. I was like, because I told her, I was like, well, you're right. Summer doesn't start till another week or so. But
don't you ever correct me.
Don't ever correct me again. Yeah. And also, if you're watching this live or after the fact, I apologize for how pink I am right now because I was just running around at football practice, getting ready for the season with some voluntary throw-arounds with the kids that'll start this fall for our middle school team. So looking forward to another football season, and with that means pro football right around the corner. And believe it or not, tonight we are starting our NFL preview.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about this NFL season. I don't really know what to think when it comes in terms of my teams, but that's all right. We have a little bit of time to form those opinions on our teams yet, as we usually stack those for our precursors like right before the season.
Yeah, those are coming at the end.
That's not always to say that some of the better teams don't get covered early. And where we're starting, it'll be interesting. Should be interesting as we kind of work our way through over the course of the summer, and we'll see. Sometimes things change throughout the summer. Injuries will happen, stuff like that. But it's kind of fun to start looking ahead because you're like, all right, these teams are starting to really take shape, and we'll kind of see how this all shapes up heading into the fall.
Yeah. So real quickly here, I'll pull up the schedule as it is set right now on jmnjrradio.com, if I can get it to pop up. Let's see if I can get that to show. Doesn't want to show.
Yeah, so
right now.
yeah, as Joe's working on it, just kind of laying out the schedule for when the different broadcasts will be, that lay out our, kind of picks or our previews anyway for the different divisions. As we've done in the past, there's kind of a division per show, and that'll lead us into, pretty much football season. Maybe not quite the NFL season, but certainly the football season. And depending on how things go, or summer can be a crazy time when it comes to the scheduling of the show. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But have it kind of planned out, and we should be ready to go for NFL season.
Yeah, let's see. I'll try to zoom in there a little more, or zoom out, and that's also helpful. Zoom in so that if you're watching this live, you can see it. Also read it off. Obviously, yesterday we were supposed to do the show. We just delayed it a day, so here we are on episode 235 talking NFC West. Then the plan is, obviously things come up, but the plan is next Sunday night, Father's Day night, to talk AFC West on the show 236. 237 then will be the week after. That'll be me and a guest talking about the NFC South, but we'll make sure that we get Justin's intake or takes on the NFC South before he leaves. And then we'll be off for a while, then we won't be back until July 16th. We'll take a couple weeks break around the 4th of July, and we'll come back with AFC South on episode 238. Again, that's July 16th. July 23rd, I'll be doing a show. Are you here for that one?
Which one?
July 23rd?
No, I'll be away that one.
So I'll have someone in with me on the 23rd to talk NFC North on episode 239. Then again, we're off for a couple weeks for a few miscellaneous things, trips and vacations and parties and all that falls in there. And episode 240 will be the night of Sunday, August 13th to do the North. The 20th will come back and conclude with we'll get close to the end, get to the teams that a lot of people are interested in with the NFC East on 241 on August 20th. Then the final week of previews right now is scheduled for the 27th. That does give us a buffer week, though, because the kickoff isn't until the 7th of September. So Sunday, August 27th, we'll do the AFC East and probably playoff and Super Bowl predictions. But if something gets delayed or we want to do an expanded NFL preview and conclude on episode 243 on September 3rd, we could do playoff Super Bowl then. Flexible, but as you can see, we're talking NFL preview, looking ahead to this coming NFL season for the rest of the summer, which hasn't even technically begun yet. But I said to my dad, after last week's show, I texted him, I was like, from now through the beginning of February, we're talking football.
Yeah.
It goes fast.
That's crazy.
It goes so quick. We just feel like we got done wrapping up the Super Bowl. That was 4 months ago. But that's it. We talked football, pro football, for 8 months. Now, once the regular season kicks off, I don't know what the schedule will be like because we have the Bulldog Hour returning, and we'll see how often we're doing that. Last year, we kind of did it every other week and squeezing in a regular show like this to talk NFL in between. We'll see what our schedule and demand is like, but we'll try to get at least one show a month in to talk NFL with you all because I know that's the biggest topic for our listeners as well is the NFL. And remember, you can see all this stuff on jmnjrradio.com. You can also get a bunch of links. You can watch it live. You can listen live. You can see the updates. You can buy merchandise and everything on jmnjrradio.com. And go to YouTube, Mixler, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and follow us on Twitter, Facebook. Send us emails. You can even leave voice messages for us. Anything and everything. We love to hear from you, and we don't get it as often as we'd like. So head to the website to check out a whole bunch of stuff from us and interact to your liking. All right, so let's get started here. Let's talk about the 2017 NFL season. Start out west and in the NFC, the original Professional Football League, or at least the one that has had a stronghold on the nation for, 80 plus years now? NFC, last year we saw pretty much the same as it's been over the last how many years? Last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Seahawks, they were the team to beat. Cardinals there as well. Very good showing from both of those teams. And then you had the Rams and 49ers.
Yeah, and both of those teams were just awful, honestly, when you look at it. And the Rams were... I feel like everyone knew the Niners were going to be bad last year, and they were really bad. Maybe worse than people thought, but the Rams, a lot of people were like, they got, the rookie quarterback and stuff, but, that defense and all those things, they were so bad, and I know there were a lot of people who weren't that upset at seeing them struggle because they felt that was kind of what they had coming after they just moved out of town in terms of leaving St. Louis when it seemed like they had a good thing building there. But, those things are really separate when you look at like the business standpoint of it and the on-field stuff. A lot of times, because the on-field businesses aren't necessarily the businesses or the business aspect that is dictating whether or not you're moving. But this team, Seattle, again, while not the dominant team they've had the last few years, was still kind of the class of this division. A lot of people kept waiting for Arizona to turn it on, but maybe it ended up being that, New England beating them with a backup quarterback early in the season was probably more on par for where Arizona was than what people were thinking. A lot of people had Arizona penciled into the Super Bowl last year going into the season.
Well, they were coming off.
They finished under 500.
They're coming off a 13-3 season, and they dropped back to 7-8-1. They didn't even get to 500. Which now looking back on it, I said that they in Seattle had a strong season, but I forgot that Arizona struggled as much as they did, finishing 7-8-1. Still good enough for second place, but Seattle, who had, I thought, a down year for them after the last few years, 10-5-1, won that division by 3 games.
Yeah, wasn't even really close, and they were, they weren't the same Seattle team that we've seen the last few years, but they, again, in that division, they really tore it up.
Yeah, and it's amazing to look at the downfall of the 49ers. You have a jump up.
The rest of the other 3 teams only managed 3 more wins than Seattle did combined. So the other 3 combined only have 3 more wins than Seattle had.
Yes, San Francisco went from 6-10 to 2010, jumped up to 13-3, then went 11-4-1 with back-to-back titles, improved to 12-4, but Seattle went 13-3 and won the Super Bowl in 2013. And then San Francisco, 4 more losses at 8-8 in 2014. San Francisco drops to last place, 5-11 in 2015, and then all they do last year is go 2-14.
Yeah, and what is it? They're on their 4th head coach in 4 years now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because 2013.
It was Harbaugh, and then the guy who they filled in, so they didn't have to pay anybody new. Right. Then Chip Kelly, and now they've got Shanahan.
Yep.
So 4th in 4 years.
Not great.
That's insane.
Let's start right there on the team focus aspect of that. So obviously there's going to be a lot of overhaul of the roster because of another change in coaches, change in philosophy, front office changes. Now you got John Lynch in there to spearhead things. They lost a ton of people, but how much talent did they really lose? Names that stand out: Blaine Gabbert, just because he's a name. He filled in, but is it that big a deal? Both him and Phil Dawson move on to the Cardinals, so. Maybe the Cardinals feel like, hey, we're taking one away from a rival, but how much are you really taking? Now, that's not to slant Dawson. Dawson was a strong kicker for a long time, but he's not in his prime anymore.
And Blaine Gabbert, honestly, while still not great, still not good, I guess. It was really hard to gauge who was good and who was not on that San Francisco team because they were so bad. That being said, he lost the starting job on that bad San Francisco team. So I think that tells you pretty much everything you need to know about where you think he's at right now.
As Penn Staters, I'd point out they lost Gerald Hodges, who came into the league with the Vikings, was traded to the 49ers. He signed with the Bills just a couple weeks ago. And who do they bring in? Well, they brought in a ton of people because there was a lot of roster overhaul. Some of the bigger names, probably Earl Mitchell, tackle from the Dolphins, Pierre Garçon, wide receiver from the Redskins, the speedy threat Marquise Goodwin from the Buffalo Bills, our boy Robbie Gould, who was a longtime Bears kicker, kicked for the Giants last year. They brought in Brian Hoyer from the Bears, who will probably be their starting quarterback. Kyle Juszczyk, I believe a Pro Bowler fullback from the Ravens, comes over. We've seen Malcolm Smith, linebacker from the Raiders. They brought in another, both Bears quarterbacks are now on the 49ers. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But Tim Hightower, they got the running back from the Saints. Again, another Penn State connection. Seahawks offensive lineman Gary Gilliam moves on. And Elvis Dumervil from the Ravens. That's a very recent signing by the 49ers, but a good veteran pass rushing presence now in the Bay Area with Elvis Dumervil. So, but what is the outlook on them? Do we see a big bump?
I don't know that we'll see a huge bump. Honestly, I still think they're probably like 4 to 6 wins. But I guess that's a big bump if you double your win total. If Kyle Shanahan manages that the first few years of his tenure, he'll be fine.
Yeah, Yeah, really, I think if this team would get to 6 wins, that'd be huge.
6 wins would be huge.
To
yes.
6 and 10.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 is more likely. I think I see the ceiling kind of at 6, but honestly, with some of those other
everything
teams,
goes right 6, everything goes wrong 2.
Right. Yeah, but
probably 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'd put them.
It's tough to go 2-14 or worse in back-to-back years.
But you know what? They are in it for the long haul. They have a new GM in John Lynch. They've got a new head coach, and they both are in it for the long haul because, you see that when they didn't break the bank for a quarterback this year.
Yep.
A lot of times you're going to see this situation. They have somebody in mind. No. And honestly, I'm not sure. There's a lot of teams, I think, that think there are worse outcomes than being the worst team this year and drafting Sam Darnold from USC, number 1 overall next year.
Right.
I know that's getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Right.
We've seen that, especially with USC quarterbacks. See also Matt Barkley, who is also signed by this team. But, a lot of people thought he was
in the goes in the 4th round.
Right, exactly. So, I don't know. I don't see that happening to Sam Darnold this year. But, maybe he's their guy if they're in that position. But I think they're going to be, honestly, a little too good to have the number 1 pick.
They also let go of Torrey Smith, speedy wide receiver, was with the Ravens for a while. He didn't work out in 2 or 3 years in San Francisco. He is now with the Eagles. And Antoine Bethea, veteran safety there, also gone in the purge. Now, draft. They had a very solid draft. John Lynch knew who he wanted. He was able to manipulate the board. They actually had the 2nd overall pick behind the Browns. They traded down 1 spot with the Bears and got a ton in return. And still got, in the 1st round, 2 of their top 3 guys, on their board. Yeah. So at 3, they took Solomon Thomas from Stanford.
Who John Lynch had a class with when he was going back for his degree.
Is that? And then they got a sliding Reuben Foster, the inside linebacker from Alabama.
Yeah, who, if his health can check out, that's a great pick for them. But, there's some things you have to see. There's a reason in some people's minds why he slipped to 31. But, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Thomas and Foster.
2 top 3, most people would say top 5 talents there. And they got them both.
And they picked up draft picks for next year.
Right.
So, they did really, really well in the draft. And we'll see where it takes them with the roster purge. But you got to think Hoyer's their starting quarterback. He's serviceable. Obviously, you don't want him long term, but he could be the guy to bridge the gap to whatever they do in the draft. You got to think that a drafted quarterback is coming in 2018.
Yeah.
It's likely top 10, probably even top 5.
But again, and this kills me to say, but look at the Dallas model. They got the line in place. They got better on defense. They're still not great, but they got better on defense. They're not the sieve they were a few years ago. And what'd they do? Now, it wasn't the way they planned it, but they got their quarterback in addition to those pieces. Now, again, that's not the way they planned it, but that is the way it worked out. So you can kind of see San Francisco is kind of going that way now. We're going to get everything in place and then get the quarterback. it's not a bad strategy to kind of go that way because, you know, that's the one piece you can add in that may change it the most. You know what I mean? Like adding the best safety in the league when the rest of your team is terrible is only going to help you so much.
It's flashy. It might sell some jerseys,
Right.
but it's not going to help you much on the
Right.
on the field. So, you know, that's where we're at with the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll see if Kyle Shanahan, who will be calling the plays on offense, can get it done in year one. You know, a lot of times we see teams under new regimes and new coaching staffs, and in this case, new front offices, to have a good turnaround in 1 year. You know, we saw it in Miami, you know, about 10 years ago where they went 1-15 to 11-5. There's nothing to say the 49ers can't do that. I agree with Justin, though. I'm saying I'm going to say 5-11. That's a +3 in the win column.
Right. You just look at how much they've lost, not just this year, but pretty much every year for the last 4 years. They've lost a ton of talent, it seems like every year. And obviously not the best, but like it's hard to replace that much of your roster every single year for 4 years.
Right.
And try and fix it in one. You know, I just don't see that happening.
Right, I agree. So we have them probably about, let's say 5-11 to be safe. Well, we go to another team that's they finished third in the division last year, but they might be in more turmoil than the 49ers are, if you can believe that. When you bring in a head coach that is younger than the host of this show, things are not probably exactly where you want them to be.
Right.
Not to say like they're going to be awful or that they're going to fail miserably and this isn't going to work. It's just it raises a lot of eyebrows when you hire a just past 30-year-old coach in a league where generally the guys doing the best are in their 50s.
Yeah.
Some in their 60s.
Yeah.
Been doing this for literally longer than he's been alive.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We've seen some behind-the-scenes stuff from the LA Rams in how the schedule unfolds in the draft. It was cool to see that access. You wonder if the younger head coach has anything to do with things like that. He seems like a great guy. Very
We also
interesting.
wonder if the owner has stuff to do with that because he is all about being a show. Because that's why you move to LA. You don't move your team to LA if you don't want to be a show. And I don't have a problem with that because it's the business of it. You know, you want to be a show. You want to have all that attention. But, yeah, it can make things more difficult as well.
So the Rams will play in London this year. One of their home games will be in Twickenham Stadium against a division game against the Cardinals. And one of the interesting things, again, this goes back to more of appealing to a younger generation or being flashy. They actually let the fans decide on uniform changes.
Yeah.
They actually got to change the fans helped change the pants and the helmet.
Right.
Now it was just face mask and it was just stripes, but still, like the ownership could have just been like told their marketing or design department to do it, or the owner could have done it, but instead they left the fans choose, which I think is a great idea. They're the ones buying the stuff. Let them buy what they want.
So what did you vote for the face mask? I voted white face mask.
White was second. I think I actually went gray. Wasn't it 3 choices, right?
I think so. I went with the white.
I don't mind the white. I didn't want the blue.
I like the white face masks. On
for
the
them,
white.
I didn't want the blue. I was like gray or white, and I was fine with the white. I don't remember what I did with the stripes. I should have. I forgot that they had done this. I would have brought it up to talk about it earlier and shown some pictures, but I forgot that they had done that. So this will be their second year back in Los Angeles. They'll be joined this year by another team that we'll talk about next week. But 4-12 last year, saw the change in everything, front office and coaching staff. I wouldn't say that their draft was overwhelming, but it's tough when you don't have a first-round pick, thanks to the trade a year ago when they took the quarterback who
Jared Goff.
Right, Jared Goff, who only played half the year.
Yeah.
He sat out for a while, but they have to go with him, right? Like he has to be the guy now.
Your other options are Sean Mannion and
Dylan
Thompson.
I don't even know who Dylan Thompson is.
So you're going with Jared Goff,
right? I think the big thing last year is either he was ineffective or they didn't give him enough opportunities to go with Todd Gurley, because in 2015 he was a stud. Like he's the one that got them at or close to 500.
Todd Gurley did terrible last year.
He was not good
but
last
they
year.
were terrible last year. Like
right.
it again, is another situation. It's hard to tell who was bad and who wasn't because the team was bad. The team was really bad.
But I look at their roster, and I just nothing stands out. So they have Goff, who is still an unknown. They have Gurley, who you thought was going to be great and struggled last year.
Yeah, but both those positions rely a lot on offensive line.
Right. Well, and wide receiver, the only guys that stand out are Tavon Austin, who I think is recovering from an ACL.
Right,
injury.
and most people just consider him a returner now.
Right. So who are the receivers? They brought in Robert Woods, but he's not a number one.
No.
He struggles to be a 2.
Yeah.
Mike Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know.
How about a tight end? They drafted Gerald Everett, but who's the guy that stands out? And like you said, offensive line, Greg Robinson has been a bust.
Yeah.
Roger Saffold looks strong, and they even brought him back after you thought he was going to the Raiders a few years ago. But you're paying him to be a guard. Now you brought in John Sullivan, who's a veteran and a great guy to have at center. But, unless some of these guys step up, and Andrew Whitworth was a good acquisition as well. So, if Robinson and Whitworth can man the tackles, Saffold inside with probably Jamon Brown, Sullivan in the center, there's a veteran presence there, but how much talent is left? How much do some of these guys have left in the tank? Defensively, they all have had a strong defensive line and rushing position for a long time, but I think they're transitioning to a different scheme. Sometimes that can help. Will putting Robert Quinn in space be a good decision, allowing Connor Barwin to play his more natural position than what he's been asked to do in Philly the last few years? I don't know. Honestly, this could be another 4-12 year. I don't know.
I see them battling it out at the bottom, and
I think enough, I think the 49ers are better than them.
I could see it, and here comes the tough part too. So X's and O's.
They got a good kicker.
X's and O's, I almost feel like, and this might sound backwards to a lot of people, but X's and O's, I feel like the young coach may have his best chance because he can, the means in which people have to learn those types of things now are just so different than before. The only way you could really learn it is to be on a staff before. Now, you can learn so much before you ever even show up to your employer. That being said, all those other stuff, and I know this is the extreme example, I know, but there's no question on how Bill Belichick is going to run his organization. And I don't mean X's and O's and stuff off the field. I mean just like the day-to-day operations. There's no questioning when how something's going to be handled. Even when something goes wrong, which doesn't happen all that often now because it's like a fine-tuned machine. But when something strays from what's supposed to happen, everyone knows how it's going to be handled by Bill Belichick. Now, we may not find out about it. That's the way they handle it, but that's just the way it is. When when the first thing goes wrong, and you're on a team where the owner wants it to be a show. We've talked about those things, inviting access, which can be great to draw people in, but at the same time, the more people you draw in, all right, now the more noise there's going to be. So just those are the really tough parts of coaching. Like the on-field stuff, everybody talks about like that, and it really doesn't really matter what level you're usually talking about. That's the stuff that's the most natural. It's all the other stuff. So how does a really young head coach, first-time head coach, end up handling those things? We shall see.
Well, there's a bunch of no-name guys that need to make names for themselves if this team wants to improve on their 4 wins from last year. I don't see it happen. I think LA goes 4-12 again, and I think the 49ers are 5-11 team. So I think the Rams finish last.
I can see that. I'm not going to argue against it. Like I think they and the Niners will both be there at the bottom, but yeah, Kyle Shanahan has proven that his offense can work, right? And Brian Hoyer has proven that he can win games. He may not be a Super Bowl quarterback, but he has proven that he can win games. That's two things that the Rams don't have.
Right.
A proven coach and – now, I say that. Kyle Shanahan hasn't been a head coach either, but he's gone kind of the more natural route to get there.
Right.
And at the same time, they have a quarterback that has proven he can be that bridge for other places.
Yeah. He's a journeyman, and sometimes that's what you need. But it's a quarterback league, and when it comes down to it, who do I like better, Brian Hoyer or Jared Goff? Right now. Not potential, not long-term. Brian Hoyer is the better guy.
Yeah.
You would think after what we saw last year.
Yeah.
So I do want to get to comments we have a few watching live, leaving some comments. Our buddy Ian says NFL already. The NBA Finals haven't even ended, but we showed the schedule and he understood it. But
well, Ian, you need to know that if the NBA Finals had ended, I was fully prepared to hijack the show. But
my boy
alas,
LeBron,
they did not.
My boy LeBron not letting that happen, baby.
Yeah, congratulations.
Hey,
you won a game. You won a
game
game.
6. Just wait.
So.
How much are you going to be sweating when that happens?
Dude, I'm sweating now.
You're
We talked about this
one,
before the show.
One game and you're like, oh, God, this can't happen.
I told you the other day I did a bunch of research, but I'm holding off till after it because I don't want to throw it out there and then have it all come back at me.
But I pleaded for you to throw it out there because I would love to be like, you probably shouldn't have said that, man.
That's exactly why I didn't say that. But anyway, so
Ian wants to know Cavs tonight. Go ahead. What do you have to say about that?
I think Cavs are going to win tonight. Yeah.
I want the Cavs to win tonight, but everyone knows that. If you've been listening to the show at all for a number of years, especially just a few weeks ago when we had my buddy Dallas on and we talked NBA, both of you were ripping on me about LeBron, and you still, every day after every game in the finals, even some of the games against the Celtics, I'd wake up, I got a notification from Dallas, and it'd be tagging you and me in it. Whatever. It's all in good fun because, whatever. We're Sixers fans, so we got nothing to cheer for the last 6 years anyways.
Right, exactly.
Trust the process, baby.
That's right. I do trust the process.
All right, so besides Ian, who actually had a comment he wanted to know about Macklin to the Ravens. So, there was rumors that could he be back in Philly? They have a glutton of receivers. I didn't really see why they would be interested. People were trying to get him to the Bills. He ends up in Baltimore, which is probably a good fit in terms of need. I know we're not doing the AFC North right now.
I really like that pick for the Ravens, that pickup for the Ravens.
His departure from the Chiefs is weird to me.
And I know, so I know this. I know this. We talk about this some more off the show than on the show, but this is the example of, and I saw it, and you see it every time this happens, but I don't really get mad at the players if they hold out for a contract because they're like, Andy Reid was at his wedding 3 weeks ago now, and 2 weeks later cuts him. Now I know it's more than that, and I get it's a business, all that stuff, but the team is going to get theirs. The team is going to get theirs. It's hard to hold the players. It's hard to get mad. I'm having more and more trouble getting mad at players for trying to get theirs. That's basically how it is. Now, that being said, if it was my team and I feel like the guy needs to be there, that bothers me more than when it's not my team. I still admit that. But you know what? But I think it's a good spot for him. And I think the Ravens, it's a spot of need every year for them. So what a great pickup for them.
Yeah, well,
I'm glad the Eagles didn't panic and try and get him. I don't know why you would.
You've got we talked a few weeks
ago.
There
are people calling for them to cut Torrey Smith and sign Macklin.
You just signed Torrey Smith.
I know. But and here's the thing too. People are always like they blame Chip Kelly for getting rid of Macklin. Macklin chose to leave. They did not trade him.
Yeah, he was a free agent, wasn't he?
Yes. And I get that you can say, oh, well, they could have gotten him if they wanted him. That's true. But you could say that about any single player. You know what? He got a lot more money to go to the Chiefs than he would have gotten from the Eagles. I'm okay with that. He chose to go. I'm okay with that. I get it. It was the perfect situation. He wanted to go to a system he knew, system he liked better. I don't blame him. I don't blame the Eagles either in that thing. And that's right, Ian. We do trust the process. In Philly, that's pretty much all we have with any of our teams right now.
Yeah. So my Uncle Rich is also watching. And obviously he's waiting with bated breath, but he's got to wait over 2 months to hear what we have to say about the AFC East.
We're just going to skip
end of
that.
August.
We're only going to do half of the AFC East, or 3/4 of the AFC East.
Nah, just one. Only one team matters in the AFC East.
That is true. That is true. Only one team does matter in the AFC East.
That's right, the Buffalo Bills. So my Uncle Rich says, and I'm guessing this is back to our 49ers talk, though it could apply to the Rams. He says get Colin Kaepernick.
To be honest, and I get it. And Kyle Shanahan has listed the football reasons why he doesn't fit his system, and that's absolutely right. He's as good as Brian Hoyer.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to argue that, but
Brian Hoyer's a better fit for him there. I get it. He'd be the best quarterback on the Rams right now.
Probably. Now. But I feel he's too much of a system quarterback, and they have so much equity in Jared Goff That like
No. Oh, I
know,
completely agree.
You're stunning development. If you
I
bring
agree.
someone in.
I agree.
The Rams aren't in it to win this year. The 49ers aren't in it to win it this year.
No, I agree.
And if you now, he's coming. Like the 49ers is an old team, so there's a reason he's not there. The Rams need him in a talent way because I agree he's probably better than Jared Goff, but they can't stun his development. They went all in with him last year in the middle of the year. They have to continue that.
No, I agree.
Colin Kaepernick could take up an entire show if we really wanted it to.
We could talk about that the entire summer. I know that's what you
Let's
want to do.
not.
I know that's what you want to do.
Please.
So I'm asking you, Uncle Rich, to just please try and swing that. Make that comment every week.
My uncle's buddy Steve's also watching, and he's loving that we're already alluding to the Patriots. You guys need to calm down. We got 10 weeks.
You saw about the rings, right?
Oh God,
283
yeah,
diamonds.
Like, but it's great. Like, I hate it, but I
the
love
first
it at
4
the same
times I
time.
saw it, I'm like, I don't get it.
You don't.
And then I was like, oh
Yeah. They will never let that one go now.
Yeah,
It's just like every year, every 18 months, someone gives them something.
Do
to
you
not
remember
let
back
go.
when we were in high school and like Boston was the city of lovable losers? Like,
yeah, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The golden years.
15 years ago, because everyone was all about the Patriots in the 2002 Super Bowl. Like, for the most part, obviously.
No. But you know when I was the 2004 Red Sox, like the 2004 Red Sox,
absolutely.
you're just like, oh my
agree
gosh,
with that,
like
because 2003 we were all like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever.
Right.
Nothing has ever happened worse to a city, to a sports team in the history. You know, Aaron freaking Boone. Like, watching that live, I was just like, I cannot believe that just happened.
Right.
But then it got even better a year later.
Yes.
At that point, you were like, I can't believe that just happened.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was
anyway,
great.
man, we've come a long way.
We have
from
come a long
that.
way. So, let's... Ian's talking basketball still. He's talking about trusting the process. So, he wants to talk about Lonzo.
And we should invite LeVar on the show. Big baller brand.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, that would certainly get our name out there, huh?
Yeah. How much are you willing to sacrifice the show for ratings? Because that is what everyone does when they have Lonzo on the show.
I'd do it.
I would too. Oh my gosh.
I'm not like.
Listen, I'd start wearing big baller brand stuff everywhere
if he's
I
gonna
go.
Give me stuff. Yeah, I feel all about it. That's right. You come here and you say whatever you want.
Right.
Who do I report to?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I got no one.
I don't. To answer Ian's question real quick, I don't want Lonzo in Philly. Not because I don't like Lonzo, but because I don't want to draft somebody who I know is gone to L.A. before we can even sign him to his first contract deal.
Right.
Like,
right.
you know you're not going to be able to keep him. Honestly, I really like the kids from Kentucky.
Wait, the Lakers are going to draft Josh Jackson? Who is the point guard? I thought they were all in. No, that's the number 1 pick.
That's the
Going
thing.
to Boston.
Yeah, they're getting the Fultz kid from Washington going to Boston. Then, yeah, like, I really like...
Is it Markel? Markel Fultz?
It might be, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I like Monk and De'Aaron Fox. I don't know. It might be because I saw them play. Yeah, Monk and De'Aaron Fox are both Kentucky.
They're both Kentucky.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll kind of see. So the only issue I have with Lonzo is that I feel like it's not the only. The biggest issue is that I feel like you get him to 3 or 4 years and he's going to L.A.
LA should just take him and end the suspense.
Right.
Just
but if you're LA and you know he's coming to you, why take him?
Yeah, true.
We'll see.
Uncle Rich has a rebuttal about the Patriots comments and all that stuff that we talked about from 15 years ago. But he says when he lived down in this region, he lived through those years and felt collapses like the 1964 Phillies.
Yeah, thank goodness I wasn't there. We got to see the flip side of that. The
Yeah.
Phillies that were good in our generation, flip side of that, overcoming, 7 down with like 17 to play.
Go. Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was great. So there's always two sides to every sports story. So, let's wrap up the NFC West and talk about the two teams. Well, the team that was average last year and the team that was good. So the team that took a step back last year, going from 13-3 to 7-8-1, the Arizona Cardinals. The biggest question surrounding them is what can Carson Palmer do now in the twilight of his career? People blamed last year a bit on him, although I'm sure there were other issues besides just quarterback play. So Cardinals, where do we see them going in 2017?
I honestly have no idea. Like, I thought they were better than what they were last year. I didn't necessarily think they were a Super Bowl team. I thought they were better than what they were. I feel like they got exposed a little bit last year. I don't know that Carson Palmer has it left in him to carry a team. You know, it's really hard when you think there's two terrible teams in the division too. You know, like
right, because you feel like
we just
that's
pegged
an
two
easy
teams
3
at
wins.
5 wins would be a good year for two of the teams we just talked about.
4 to 5 wins.
So
yeah.
that leaves some wins on the table there, but I still think I don't see them. I see them maxing out at 10. I see them probably 8 or 9 wins again.
I
this
agree.
year.
They were at 7 last year. It's crazy to think 8 or 9 is an improvement after they took a 5.5 game step back from 2015. You know, they didn't bring in a lot, so they're sticking with their guns. They brought in Bethea from the 49ers and Dawson from the 49ers, both older guys. They got the 2 longest offseason contracts for unrestricted free agents. But they did bring in a guy who I always liked when Pittsburgh took him, in Jarvis Jones. Now, he never, it didn't come together for him in Pittsburgh. They brought him in on the cheap, and they re-signed 2 of their own in Frosty Rucker and Andre Ellington. The draft, I think pretty average. Nothing stands out. While I like the local connection in Hassan Reddick and his story, being a guy who wasn't heavily recruited, it's just a walk-on player, shifting positions throughout his career, then going in the top 15 of the draft. Like, I feel like there's going to be some. I
think there's a learning curve there yet. Like, I think the talent may be there, but I don't think he's a guy you're just going to plug in and it's going to be like, a Pro Bowler this year. Like you sometimes see on the defensive line, you see some of these rookies come in just relatively fresh legs, just not dominate, but make a splash, especially in the first 6-7 games of a season.
Right.
I don't know that you're going to see that out there. So yeah, I saw that too. That was interesting. I like that pickup for. I don't know if it was a pickup or a change, or even if it's been there for a year or so. But some coaching. They have some solid coaching out there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, by the way, if you haven't seen. If you haven't seen the Bruce Arians, like the NFL Life or Football Life on NFL Network, his is crazy. It's cool. He's a Pennsylvania guy. He's from like York County, I think, and was the Temple coach. So,
and he's done quite well.
Yeah.
He's from Paterson, New Jersey. That's where he was born, but he went to William Penn, who actually the Bulldogs from Wilson. Our high school here. They were supposed to scrimmage York William Penn later this August. It just actually got changed, but that's where Bruce Arians went to high school and then attended Virginia Tech. But he was a big-time guy with the Steelers from 2007 to 2011, and then he was in Indianapolis for the year and kind of was the guy out there. Because of the health situation in Indianapolis. And then he left the next year and has been in the Cardinals since 2013. And
how about he was the running backs coach at Alabama under Bear Bryant? I did not know that.
Oh. He was head coach at Temple for 6 seasons, 83 through 88.
Yeah.
So he's been around, and he's already been NFL Coach of the Year twice.
Yeah.
Once with the Cardinals, once in the great job he did with the Colts.
So that's why I struggle to say they are gonna struggle again, but. I don't know, like, the roster, a lot of last year, I felt like they just weren't good enough, and so I didn't see the big changes in the roster that make me think, oh, they got a lot better. Like, I don't know that they were the second-place team last year. I don't know that they're good enough to be the first-place team this year. Like, I still have them as second-best team in the division.
Yeah, I look at their schedule, and I think they need to start strong or have a good middle of the year because the last 3 weeks are against all teams that I think many consider potential playoff teams. Yeah. When you have the Redskins, the Giants, and the Seahawks, two of the three on the road. I would say
maybe four. Maybe four of the Tennessee probably teams don't consider them, but I think they're bubble.
Right, they're bubble. But they have to win the games against the Rams and the 49ers.
A nice thing for them.
You can't drop one of those.
5 of their last 8 are at home. Yeah. Which means they start the first 3. Oh, sorry, no. They're on the road the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's
they have
that's tough.
4 of their first 7 are on the road. Actually, 5 of their first 8 are on the road, including a bye week in there too. So they need a fast start. They need to beat up the cellar dwellers in their division, and then they got to finish with a couple tough tests in December, and they play on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and the last one's at Seattle. So if they have to win to get in, that's a tough task for them.
Yeah, not just Seattle, but at Seattle. Not a fun one.
No, not an easy place to play. So I think we're all in agreement that the Seahawks are probably the team to beat again. There's not much in front of them.
Show me it's not them, right? Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing for them is they've kind of had an off season that's been a little crazy, just because they were largely irrelevant last year. Like, people talked about them. It was a down year. Russell Wilson was injured and not playing well. There were questions already that when the season began about Marshawn Lynch. Is he going to come back? And he didn't end up coming back. And obviously now we know he's back, but not in Seattle. So it's been tumultuous. They kind of invited with the personalities they like, but that's Pete Carroll. I mean, Pete Carroll belonged at USC, and he belongs in LA right now because that's the type of coach he is. He belongs at the Rams or the Chargers, but he's up in Seattle. But I mean, you look at the personalities on there, big personalities that have paid off well, a few years ago. But now, with the Bennetts,
when you're winning,
Shermans,
when you're winning, everything's fine.
Yeah, but when you're
and
not,
by winning, I mean they were winning big. They won a Super Bowl. Could have, should have, would have won a second Super Bowl.
I know when you get in the NFL, it's all about your position and getting the money, and I'm fine with that. But the thought that these professionals can have an offensive versus defensive mindset and not play as a team is just ludicrous to me. And the ultimate team sport, that you can just draw lines like that and be like,
oh yeah.
And best of all, that their defense wasn't even that good last year.
No.
I mean, that sounds really bad. They were good. But
they weren't,
not what
they weren't the
had
Seattle
been. They weren't
defense
the Legion of Boom that we were associated with, 3, 4, 5 years ago when they were making those great runs.
It's absolutely that. And I honestly, I think it's more like that than we can imagine, which is the frustrating part. But yes, that's how this works. It's just, but it's one thing to have those thoughts. It's another for when they start to come out.
Yeah, and there was an entire spread in ESPN the magazine about it.
Yeah.
Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah. But this is, like you said, this is what Pete Carroll teams thrive on, and you live by it, you die by it. And that, if they win this year, by that I mean, have another good season, make a deep playoff run, it won't be an issue. It'll start being a story. They'll talk about, that'll be the story, how they've overcome all this stuff. But if they struggle, then it starts to go bad in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, they were 5th in total defense. They surrendered over 300 yards.
Well, and then
game.
you can look for Pete Carroll to leave and jump ship before the whole thing goes south, like he did at USC, right?
Totally. Why? Why wouldn't he? Yeah. So but I don't. That stuff just grinds my gears. That kind of stuff. They weren't the worst. Obviously, they were a top 5 team. They were 5th, I think it was last year. In what was it, yards? Is that what I said it was? This isn't sorting for me to verify that. Yeah, they were 5th in total yards surrendered per game. So, but when you were first for 3 or 4 years in a row, you took a little step back.
Right.
And the offense didn't perform. And I know firsthand the offense didn't perform real well because I took Russell Wilson thinking they were going to have an awesome year, and it just didn't work out that way. So, I don't know. We'll see what's in store from this year, but
the key is going to be their offensive line. Their line was terrible last year. No one had a chance to be good. So, if they can turn around, the offense can be a little more productive, and the defense can hold their own, be a top 5 defense. There you go. You're probably looking at 11, 12 wins again. Honestly, in this division, if you get slight improvement on offense and steady on defense, you're probably 11 or 12 wins. Because we just said, I don't think the other teams are that good.
Right. So the Seahawks were 8th against the pass on defense, and they were 7th against the run.
I think they win 11 games.
I probably agree with you. I think, because what else is there? I mean, they could they could go 6-0 against their division. Do I think they will? No, they'll probably go 5-1.
Right.
That's the problem with them right now is they always have a hiccup against like the Rams, like at least one game a year, sometimes both.
Yeah.
They can't beat the Rams. It's just so weird how some teams just have their number. But we've seen it, and this isn't just me talking, and the stats back this up. We've seen it with the Dolphins and the Patriots.
Right.
You know, I think last year was the first time in a few years the Dolphins didn't beat them one time. You know, and the Dolphins are the biggest hill to climb for the Patriots. Yeah, the rivalry is probably bigger with the Jets, but I think that's just because of location, the cities. Like the Dolphins, for the most part, over the last 15 years. Now, the Dolphins had some terrible years, but the Dolphins still managed to pick one from them.
Right.
So there's always seems to be these teams that something about them it just eats away at them, and the Rams kind of have been like that for the Seahawks. So, but the Seahawks, they lost their kicker. Steven Hauschka went to the Bills.
Yeah, Steven Hauschka, not the same Steven Hauschka though of
He's
years
fallen
past.
off as the team has fallen.
Yes, and he missed a chip shot that would have won the Arizona game last year that ended in a tie. He was still okay, but he was not the kicker of years past last year.
They brought in Blair Walsh to replace him.
So I think a change of scenery is exactly what Blair Walsh needs.
Yeah, but the problem is you're going from Minnesota, and for a long time had been a dome stadium. Now he's kicking in Seattle.
Yeah, that's true.
They did. They lost a couple offensive linemen, Gilliam and Soul.
I like Gilliam because he's from Penn State, but I don't see any loss they have on the offensive line is devastating because they got it together late in the season, but they were.
They replaced him with two young veterans that haven't lived up to the hype, in Luke Jokel and Ode Ibushi. The biggest acquisition is Eddie Lacy, who everyone's been focusing on.
Who, by the way, made his second weight
and he's made. So,
what's he get, like $55,000 a piece if he weighs under 250? He's done it 2 times.
So ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You're worth what people will pay you.
Exactly.
So, Seahawks draft, again, they traded out of the first round. Their first pick was Malik McDowell. You know, they needed defensive line help, so that's a good pick from Michigan State. Again, nothing stands out too much for me. They took a guy named Mike Tyson. That's cool. But, you know, they didn't have to do much because all the teams around them, I feel like, are getting older, imploding, or rebuilding.
Yeah.
So I feel like they're the de facto NFC West champs.
It's funny when you look at it. Where did we say they struggled so much last year? Offensive line. They drafted 1 offensive lineman.
Right.
Oh no, sorry, that was undrafted free agent. Sorry.
They did. They drafted 1 offensive line. No, 2. Sorry, I missed the center. Yeah. So they got LSU center Ethan Pochik and Justin Senior offensive tackle from Mississippi State, and they brought in an undrafted guy. So, I mean, they probably actually have big things for the LSU center to take him in the second round. They probably think he's going to start.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I know this is really generalizing, but you know, some of those
they have Justin Britt.
Those SEC linemen, man, big boys. I mean, big boys.
He could shift to guard. Actually, this roster lists him as guard, so they may be putting him at guard. I forgot they had Justin Britt. He's maybe their best offensive lineman was Jermaine Ifedi.
So maybe they're there. Maybe you can get a step up from Luke Joeckel. You know?
Yeah, maybe if he plays like he should have. I mean, he was the second? Was he the first overall pick? No, he was the second overall pick.
He was really high.
Because the Jaguars had the second pick that year, right? Because the Chiefs took what's his name? I can't think of his name.
I'm not sure.
It was from one of the smaller, Eric Fisher from Central Michigan. Yeah. That was the first year that he was out there with the Chiefs, wasn't it? Andy Reid.
Yes, because he took a lineman, and everybody was like, "Yep, surprise!" Andy Reid takes an offensive lineman. Okay,
so that's kind of where we're at with the Seahawks. They have a pretty easy end of the year. After they play the Falcons the week before Thanksgiving, they play.
What are you trying to say?
Hold on, I'll get to it. They play at San Francisco. That should be a win. They host the Eagles, and I'll say that should be a win too because it's at home.
Absolutely.
I'm not picking on the Eagles.
No,
Then they go to Jacksonville. That should be a win.
Yep.
They host the Rams. Again, that should be a win. They go to Dallas. I'll give them a push on that one. I honestly think Dallas is going to
win, but
I honestly think Dallas is going to be worse this year. So but I'm not going to say should be a win.
I'm hoping, but
And then they host the Cardinals. So, I mean, really, those last, 6 weeks? How many? None of those are guaranteed losses.
right, they should win at least 4.
They should be at least
Should
4
win
and 2,
5.
and probably should be 5-1. So, the
And
earlier
the front
season,
half of their schedule isn't that.
Packers
Green
start
Bay, that's
slow,
a tough one.
But they start slow.
That's true.
49ers shouldn't be any good. Titans, that could be a surprise.
Yeah.
Could be a surprise. It's on the road. Colts, who knows?
But they host the Colts.
But they host them, and then they have the Rams buying at the Giants.
yeah.
So I mean, I think if they win less than 10 games, that's a disaster.
yeah.
Like with this schedule, the way it sets up, I think they should win 12. I think they should be at 12-14
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
because of the division they're in. I mean, they should go 6-0. They won't, but they should. So you go 4-2 against them. You just have to go what? Oh, I guess you got to go 8-0 then. No, 8. Wait.
Yeah.
6,
You go 4 and
8-2.
yeah.
I was like, wait, something's not wrong. I can't math right now. Yeah, so I think it's absolutely feasible for them to go 12-4.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm still going 11 because we talked about they have that hiccup every year. So.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I mean 11-5 is still great, but I think they should be 12-4.
And I think 11 is still going to win their division by 2 or 3 games. So.
if they go 11 or 12, they could win that by 5. Like you could see
They
the
could.
Cardinals win 6 or 7.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then you have the other ones down 3, 4, 5.
Right.
I think we're back to the NFC West being bad.
Right. Well, and then you become like, all right, Seattle may be pushing for home field or the 2nd seed, but how bad do they push for that 1 seed? Yeah, I don't know.
So Father's Day Sunday, so just in 6 days, we will be going over the AFC West. We'll flip it, and we will be talking about the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders, and it'd be interesting. I think it's a better division than the NFC West, which we weren't saying a few years ago. But we saw the Broncos go on a tear. The Broncos had won? They won 5 titles in a row before being, losing it to the Chiefs last year. And the Raiders also very, very strong, and people are very high on both of them. Will the Broncos answer the quarterback issues? Will the Chargers moving to LA? Anything left in the tank for Phillip Rivers?
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
They loaded up on some wide receivers, so
yep,
we'll see.
they did. So we'll see what happens in the AFC West next Sunday. Before we go, Ian's back with more Kaepernick, but it relates to the NFC West. So he says, what are your thoughts on the Kaepernick situation? If no one is going to sign him, why wouldn't Seattle sign him if Pete Carroll talks so highly of him? I think it says a lot that Carroll was so high on him, and then they went out and signed another guy who, doesn't exactly have the track record that Kaepernick does.
I honestly don't know what to make of it.
They're having some issues. Oh, it's not on here. I can't even remember his name. That's how the name doesn't stand out so much that I don't even remember his name now, the guy that they decided to sign. Because Trevon Boykin, who's immensely talented and athletic, is also getting in off-the-field issues.
Right.
They need to bring in another guy, and they go with him over Kaepernick.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to.
I feel like it's one of those things where Pete Carroll didn't know what to say, so you just talk highly about the guy.
Right.
Like he didn't want to pile on and say anything negative.
Right.
Because no matter what you say, you'll be treated as being for or against him. So he just praised him and then just didn't sign. So it's kind of like, kind of covertly saying you're not the guy for us.
Yeah.
While not publicly shaming him.
Right. I do know, and I have heard some people talk that in the NFL, very much the mindset of a backup quarterback needs to be different than the mindset.
Well, it has to be about the team and not about yourself or
right.
something that you consider bigger than the game.
Right. And I don't know that Kaepernick right now, and I said I don't know, but I don't know if Kaepernick right now has the mindset of a backup that they're looking for. Does that make sense? I don't.
Well,
like you said, we could do an entire show on some of the multiple angles on this whole thing, but
a starting NFL player can have whatever you want to call it, motivations and or baggage or whatever it is, both criminal, familial, educational, like anything you come up with that could be seen as a negative. If you're better than 98% of the guys, you're playing. It doesn't matter, because in the end, it's all about just winning. And why is it about winning? Because for the majority of people, ownership, front office, and fans, it's about winning, and for some, it's about the money. Right now, Colin Kaepernick's on-the-field talent isn't translating into wins, so no one wants to deal with him because there's so much attached to it, because the media has focused on him for nearly the last year. And if he was doing all his activism when he was leading the 49ers to 12-win seasons, it wouldn't be as big a deal.
And you know what? It's an interesting thing to think about. How would his actions be perceived if those things were more public before? I word it that way because I'll be honest, I don't know his actions before. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's where I think the schism is, because people saw this as a way to get back in the limelight, because he had already lost his job.
Right.
He was already not the guy in San Francisco anymore. When Harbaugh left, he became the shell of himself. He was unable to adapt.
Right.
People started to take advantage of his weaknesses, and he no longer was a top 10 quarterback. Some would say he never was, but the results on the field and in the win column, said otherwise for a couple seasons.
And I think what it has hurt him. Now, he was there, so he may be part of this, but it hurt him to be in San Francisco of all places the last few years, because the team was terrible.
Yeah,
the team was terrible, and we just said it's really hard to tell who is good and who is not from that team at any position, because they were so bad. And so I just think, I think it's tough. I think from, no, I'm not even, we'll talk about it after the show, but,
I just think when the Seahawks signed, here it is, Austin Davis, who was a starter, I believe, for the Rams for a little bit.
2 games.
When they chose him over Kaepernick, like I said, that kind of was like, the back alley way of saying, like, he's just not doing it, as in Kaepernick's not doing it. And if Pete Carroll, who praised him, and is a guy that you think he would mesh well with, if he wasn't ready to pull the trigger, I think that says a lot. I'm not a Pete Carroll fan.
Right.
And
I still think he'll end up on a team when one of the guys goes down hurt, because somebody's going to get hurt somewhere in the next month and a half. And I think by the end of September, I think he's on a roster. That's my take.
I think,
because here's the thing. So, okay, right now, but like as we get closer to that season starting, right? The wins become more important, right? The focus on the wins becomes even more. And you're telling me a team is going to be like, you know what? Now, again, I don't know, but this is my take. I feel like Colin Kaepernick, even if he's a system quarterback, is better than Austin Davis. That's my take. You're telling me a team like Pete Carroll is going to be like, you know what? I think, like, if Russell Wilson goes down hurt, I think we're going to just ride with Austin Davis. I don't know. Maybe that one situation they do, but if it happens in a couple places, I don't know.
What makes it any different now than it would then? Like, what if you're like, man, we really need to have a good backup?
Well, because I think it's more a pressing issue.
Shouldn't you have him in your system
August
now then?
Yes, but see, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like in the moment, people are going to be like, people who I don't want to get into it.
Well, because we could go on for another hour.
Right, and everything goes back to certain issues here too. Not right or wrong. There are aspects of this that are just facts. Like,
I mean, the big thing.
He is a polarizing figure. That's a fact.
We talked about it when it came up last August. We talked about it when it came out last year and everything started. And just recently, was it Mara that said that he got more people reacting to the Giants signing Kaepernick than
but
anything else?
My issue with that is you left Josh Brown on your team last year after he admitted beating his wife, and yet the Kaepernick thing, like, okay, like I understand that, but if you're willing to take a stand and say, oh well, I want to give quote unquote second chances to guys for a guy like that, like Josh Brown, then I'm just like, and that's the same thing in Seattle. If it's the talent issue, then you know what? Don't have him on the team. And like you said, I think a big part of it is talent because teams are going to want to win. And that's why I think the true test will be when those games are closer. When those games are closer, what's it going to be?
I mean, that's a risky,
I agree.
business move.
I agree.
To not have him in there learning now.
But at the same time, I think, it's easy to think that when you don't think Russell Wilson's going to get hurt, or when you don't think Carson Palmer's going to be hurt, or when you don't think like one of those guys is going to be hurt.
Being hurt.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's easier right now when you still have everyone, not just Seattle, everyone has these high expectations and these visions of grandeur for the season, and nobody's going to have, we won't have any major injuries this year. I think that's everybody's thought process right now. I think, when somebody busts their leg up in the third preseason game, somebody's going to.
Well, I mean, I believe
I get it. Like, and if the talent's not there, then he shouldn't be on the team. But like you said, Trayvon Boykin, how many DUIs is he going to have before? And that's something that actually endangers someone else. Like, I can think whatever, and anybody can think whatever they want about what Colin Kaepernick has done, with the kneeling. Like, and I get that, and not everybody sees that the same way, and that's fine. But in reality, the only effect that has on anyone else is their opinion or take on that. Whereas Trayvon Boykin driving, like DUI, that's one of the things that I can't stand. Like, I can't stand it because, like, that can affect other people.
Yeah, I mean,
in drastic ways. And this isn't like my time to like stand up and preach about that. But like, you know what I mean? Like, those are the types of things. Or the Josh Brown situation with John Maher. Like, I don't want to hear it from him. I get he was probably answering a question he was asked, which changes the dynamic. A lot of times we jump on guys for answering questions they were asked. But, you stood up for Josh Brown, like that affected other people. I just. That's my take, and I don't know. I just, but like you said, he wasn't exactly thriving in San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, the arrow was pointed down.
Right.
Like,
and
people can make it out to be, whatever you want to make it out to be.
I think the San Francisco and Kaepernick in general comes down to, was it Jed or Ted York, couldn't make it work with Harbaugh. That's what the San Francisco being terrible issue comes down to, is he couldn't work it out with Harbaugh. Now, who do you want to blame that on? That's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But that's why they're in this situation. So we'll see. But
yeah,
the Kaepernick thing, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
In the end, though, it comes down to he's not good enough to make up for the drama off the field.
And that's absolutely true.
Like, that's
if
bottom line for everyone.
If this happens coming out of the Super Bowls, he's on a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is on a team because people still view him as good enough to deal with that other stuff. And, I don't know. And, honestly, as a backup, it's hard to prove that you're worth that. It's hard to prove that. Like, as a starter, at least, if you're bringing him in as a starter, at least there's some tangible, like, we're winning or we're not. As a backup, though, it's tough.
So the NFC West picks we were pretty much in agreement that the Rams and the 49ers are in the basement.
Still bad.
There. Probably 4 or 5 wins for them. Cardinals right around 500, 7-9. Seahawks run away with the division, 11-12 wins. Only one playoff representative from them, and that would be the Seahawks. All right, next week on episode 236, we're covering the AFC West on Father's Day night. You can get more for us always check for more from us on jmnjrradio.com. You can follow us on Twitter at jmnjr_radio, at Joe Mays and J-Raff, at jmflyer1454, and at Mr_Raffoff. Shout-outs, birthdays, of course. Which one did I not mention last week? That was in between, so I could say it this week, but I should have said it last week. Happy birthday to my youngest daughter, Haley, who turned 2 this past week. I wanted to mention last week, and I forgot.
Spring birthday.
What happens when I don't when I don't write it down. So I think that probably covers it. I'll probably forget another one and have to mention another one next week. But do you have any shout-outs or anything to mention before we go?
No.
All right. Thanks for joining us. This wraps up the 235th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Tune in every Sunday for the latest sports discussions from Joe and Justin. Each episode is available live
on Facebook Live
and can be downloaded or streamed on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can interact with Joe and Justin on Facebook and Twitter, and stay up to date with the guys at joemaysandjraff.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is part of the JMNJR Radio Network. For more info, visit jmnjrradio.com.